All right, we're welcoming to the show Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, former Blue Jacket and current Fox Sports analyst for Fox Sports Ohio, does the pregame, in-between periods, and postgame show. How are you doing today, Jean-Luc?
I'm doing good. You?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for joining the show. We're really excited to have you on. So I just want to get started off. What are your thoughts so far on the season for the Blue Jackets? Is this what you expected? Obviously, with the injuries, it's been a little crazy over there, but what's your take on the season so far?
I think it's pretty much where I expected them to be, just not in the way they got there. Obviously nobody saw this line of injuries that's been piling up on the team, on a daily basis, it seems like, and, 2 more again this week with Seth Jones and Cam Atkinson. I just heard now he's out 2 to 3 weeks, so that's going to be a hard blow, but it seems like this team does not care. It's a next man up mentality, as we heard multiple times, and they seem to thrive from it. So hopefully it's a good sign for them and they keep going.
All right. You touched on it right there. The team doesn't really care that much, or seem to care that much about the injuries, as long as they're winning. With that being said, how long do you think the next man up mentality can last with all the injuries the team's been hit with?
Oh, time will tell. To be honest with you, time will tell. It's hard to really put a pulse on it or a finger on what's going on, but it seems like the leadership group in the room and in the organization is they've kind of just take anything that's out of their control, out of their playbook, and they know some guys are missing, so it's an opportunity for some of the young guys to step up and get an opportunity that maybe they didn't expect. And so far, it's been great because there's a lot of pleasant surprise with the Blue Jackets team this year that, probably wouldn't have gotten a chance if everybody was healthy this year, and there were some good surprises as well. So, you just saw Nathan Gerby and Eric Robinson signing new deals over the last couple of weeks. That's a perfect example because earlier this season, both of these guys didn't start the year with the team level as well. And I think, obviously, the goaltending has been so strong for them throughout the season, especially in that second half there. If they can keep it up, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Okay, awesome. Now let's talk a little bit about the playoff position. Are the Jackets, do you feel like, in a good position right now for the playoffs?
If the playoffs were to start tomorrow, of course, it would be ideal to have a few more guys healthy. Now are they a Stanley Cup contender? I think you'd be a fool to think they are right now because realistically, you need your top players to be in the lineup to have a chance at it. And, the Jackets are not in that position right now. But as far as entering the playoffs, if you're talking about their positioning right now with the first wild card spot, I think they're in good position, yes.
Kind of going off of new players that are stepping up as well as future and playoff pictures, how would you rate Liam Foodie's debut on Monday night against the Lightning?
I think it was good. Liam Foodie is a guy that I personally saw during the development camp, and the one thing that jumped at me was his speed, and I think against Tampa it showed. Tampa is a very fast team, and he definitely didn't look out of place there. So for guys to come out from, juniors unexpectedly like that, not really knowing about the way the team plays, beside watching them play on TV once in a while, I'm sure, because in junior you have so many games that you really don't have time to watch your NHL team play. I think he did really well, so it's going to be interesting to see what their plan is going to be in the future with him. I know he's playing in Buffalo tomorrow, so he'll be joining the team tonight. But for next season, the future is definitely bright for him because he definitely has the speed, the skills. It's just about will he be able to sustain it at the NHL level.
So I want to selfishly have you talk about yourself for a minute. Your first career goal was with the Blue Jackets, I believe, in your third season. It was in November of 2000. You guys won 5-2. Steve Shields was the goal that game for the Sharks. How much do you remember from that game?
Honestly, I don't remember the date. I remember who it was against. I didn't remember Steve Shield was in that. He probably gave me a free pass there because I played with Steve in Buffalo the year before. So maybe that's what it was all about. But yeah, I definitely remember more like my first NHL game than your first NHL goal. But yes, I still remember that it definitely happened with the Blue Jackets. But yeah, it's not something that I ever kind of like stop and think like, oh, I remember that first goal. So it was not that, it didn't mark me that well, I guess. I remember more my first fight, my first NHL game than my first goal.
So following up on that a little bit, you played, in the early 2000s. What is the culture in like just the city of Columbus, and what's the difference between that time when there wasn't much success with the franchise and there was, a lot of new fans who might not know much about hockey? What's the difference between that time and where we're at today? What's the culture like, the locker room? What's that like for it?
I think as far as the locker room, the first year was, we were actually we surprised a lot of people by how well the team ended up doing that first year, just because of, I think, the leadership was strong. With Lyle Line, and we had a few other veteran guys that really had a lot of experience. And I think Dave King was the perfect coach because in the expansion era, it's kind of hard because you have basically 20 guys that never really played together. As far as, every other team has at least 10, 12, 15 guys returning from the season before. So it was, and our training camp was just as long as anyone else. So it was a very short period for a group of guys to really emerge and understand a new system from a new coach, new arena. So if you take away the first 20 games, which is basically like the adaptation period, I think the team did really well for a first year. And then, we all know about the down years, and that was probably starting season 4 through season 15 almost. So that was 10 years of, pure misery. But since Jarmo Kekalainen and John Torella has come to the organization with John Davidson, I think there was a clear culture change from top to bottom. And that's really where, the Blue Jackets became what you want to call a successful franchise as far as the results on the ice.
So coming back to more of the modern this season Blue Jackets, and particularly Monday night game against the Lightning, that overtime play, that overtime fluke, I'll call it, by Zach Werenski, just how do you think he'll respond to this just overall? And obviously players have, great players like Werenski always have these bad things. Just how do you think he'll respond after this kind of fluke?
I don't think it's going to affect him one bit. The one thing with, actually, Seth Jones is kind of the same way. They're so level-headed, whether it's a mistake or they scored a hat trick the night before, you wouldn't be able to tell within 5 minutes of it happening. So I'm sure he was upset about, the mistake. But it's not something that's going to affect him. He's still going to play the same way. He's not going to change his style. So I don't think there's going to be any effect from it. And that's just his personality. Now, some guys take it a little more personal, so they score a hat trick and they're on a cloud 9 for 2 weeks, and then they make a mistake and it's the end of the world. But, that's what the difference is between great players is, average players, that emotionally they're very leveled, and that's Zach's personality, so I don't think it's going to affect him at all.
Appreciate your input. Thank you.
Talk about your transition from being an NHL player to then being an analyst. That's always an interesting thing to me when they go from the field or the hockey rink right into the booth. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's definitely a big adjustment. Obviously going to broadcasting is something that I've never, it's not something I've ever dreamed of or anything like that, in the past, especially when you're playing. When you're playing, people ask you all the time, hey, what are you going to do after hockey? Trust me, that's the last thing on your mind. You're so worried about today and tomorrow that you don't think about what's going to happen after your career. So that was not something that I saw myself doing. And after I retired, I went into real estate. I kind of want to take a step back from the sport altogether. And obviously last year with Billy leaving, there was an opportunity. So I definitely was just to come back into it. And but as far as the adjustment, it's been good. I think me being removed from the game for like quite a few years definitely helped to have more of a I don't want to call it a neutral way to look at the game, but not. As an old player, you always want to compare anything that you did to what they're doing now, and I think a lot of time it becomes almost like, hey, this is how they should do this because that's how we did it back in the days. Well, then you sound like a dinosaur. So for me, I think it was a good thing to really understand the game, see the game evolve over the last few years because it's a completely different game than when I played. And so for me, that definitely helped. Now, the on-camera part, that was probably the biggest challenge for me. A one-on-one conversation with a friend about hockey is pretty easy, but for some reason, getting comfortable in front of a camera was something completely different. And that took a while to adjust, but at the end of the day, you just have to be yourself, and that's what's going to make you successful. So I think, about 15, 20 games in, that's what I decided to do. I'm like, I'm just going to be myself. Don't try to imitate or, copy something that someone else is doing. And I think that's the secret to success right there, just personality.
So you mentioned Bill Davidge a little bit. Did you reach out to him? How he had that spot for a long time. A lot of Blue Jacket fans know and love him. He always seems like a really nice guy. Did he? What was the relationship with him when you found out you were going to be taking over for him?
So Billy and I go back a long time. So obviously he was covering the team back when I was playing. So I've known him for a while. But yeah, last year he kind of told me early on that he's probably not coming back next year. And, he's like, hey, think about it. I think you would enjoy it. And I was like, I wasn't quite sure. But this summer, he's definitely somebody that I reached out to multiple times to kind of hear a little bit about the day-to-day and expectation and what he enjoyed about it, what he didn't enjoy about it. And then you kind of weigh in the pros and cons. And then, obviously, before it was publicly announced, Billy was the first person to find out, this time my wife, that I was going to take the position because, I think I owed it to him just because we've been such a good friends over the years.
Okay, awesome. Since we are a media school, there's a lot of people here with hopes and dreams of becoming a sports broadcaster. So what kind of qualities and skills do you think are necessary to succeed in this business?
What type? So I'm not gonna lie. I'm very lucky, kind of just because of the fact that I played the game and it kind of gave me the edge, I guess. And don't take it the wrong way, but if one of you guys would have applied for the same position against a former player, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's me or someone else, I think a lot of time because of, people want to relate or they want to be like, hey, who is this guy? At least, he used to play here, whatever. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not saying it's fair or anything like that. But I would say the biggest tip I would give you, honestly, is get in with any team. It doesn't matter if it's a baseball team, a soccer team, just get in and do some internship because that's the I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dylan Tyre, who's doing the radio with Bob McElligott now. And it's literally just being an intern over a couple of years, and then next thing you know, there's an opening, and they interviewed everyone, and he was, everybody that was on the broadcast working on the radio really pushed hard for him because he did so much behind the scene over the years. So I would say don't think of the immediate result. Think the long term of your goal and your dream, and go for it. And Bob McElligott, same thing. I think he started as a mascot. He was he was a mascot. He was doing printing material, promotional stuff in the East Coast League, and then went to the American League and the NHL. So it's not an easy path. It's kind of like the professional players you see on the ice, right? They didn't just wake up one day and a team call and say, hey, here's $5 million, I want to sign you. So, all the dirty work that's being done behind the scene, sometimes you're going to feel like you're doing it for nothing, but at the end of the day, it's most likely going to pay up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've been doing a lot of high school hockey here on Store on Air. And this week we just talked to the commissioner of the Capital Hockey Conference. We're going to be broadcasting the CBJ Cup Finals from the Ice House on Sunday. I believe I heard that you might have worked with New Albany High School. I might be wrong on that, so forgive me if I am.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. What do you like? What's your view of like the high school hockey culture here in Central Ohio, and how much of a role do you think the Blue Jackets have played in building that up a little bit? Because there's some great talent here in Columbus.
Yes. Well, first of all, the Blue Jackets, definitely the McConnell organization, been doing a great job, not only to grow the sport but help fund it as well. Because I'll tell you, I was coaching in Albany, I was on the board as well, and the amount of money it takes to run a hockey program, not including, the $2,000 fee each player has to pay, their families, it is ridiculous. And obviously, reason number one is the ice time, and then you have uniforms, and, there's so much. It's such an expensive sport, and the Blue Jackets have been super generous, giving a lot of money to each team to really help, especially with startups. And they helped us tremendously in Albany. They've helped every program that's been trying to do something well. Heads up today, a big round of applause for the organization to really help with that. And as far as the talent, yes, for high school hockey, yes, it's strong. But at the end of the day, when I was coaching in Albany, I wasn't trying to develop, NHL players. That's not the goal, because realistically, NHL players don't even play high school hockey. They kind of skip that level.
Right.
But it's really just to develop young, good young people. And that was always my number one priority, is really to see the kids bond, have fun, have an atmosphere of like respect, and, just carry themselves the right way. And when I see these guys graduate and, they're back here in the summer and in college 2-3 years into it, that's, for me as a coach, that's the biggest reward, bigger than seeing a guy playing in the NHL and being a complete, ass, right? So for me, just seeing these guys doing something with their life and, having, respect, and, I see them around and they still call me coach. It's kind of like, I sound like a grandpa here, but it really, really touches me in a better way than seeing if one of my players was scoring a hat trick in an NHL game.
And that's, since we've been doing the games, we've been interviewing a lot of the players. That's actually something that I've noticed. We've done St. Charles and Dublin Coffin players, and a lot of them seem like very good young men, good head on their shoulders, wanting to move on to something after high school where it's meaningful. Like one of them from Dublin Coffin wanted to do some like climate cleanup. They all seem like really good, solid young men. So it's definitely. I don't think that's just you on your side. It seems like all the coaches that I've talked to in the CHC are very much on the same page. So. All right, so just want to thank you one more time for your time, Jean-Luc. Good luck with the rest of the season. I've enjoyed watching you on the broadcast. It's been a lot of fun. So is there anything else you want to talk about, anything you want to plug, social media or anything, Jean-Luc?
I will say, no plug or anything like that. I'll tell you guys, I would say you guys going to do some high school games. Try to get, oh my gosh, so I know OSU, so last year I want to get some reps for the radio because I was thinking about maybe doing radio instead. And I remember I reached out, so I helped out the OSU women's team, hockey. And they were always looking for people to help out as well with their broadcasting. So like I said, I'm like, there's no stupid job in broadcasting.
Absolutely.
It's all about getting reps, more reps, more reps. That's how you're going to get more comfortable. So take advantage of it, and any way you can find. Sometimes you almost have to pay to get your reps, but trust me, it's well worth it.
I've been in it for about 13 years. Trust me, I spent a couple years doing nothing but putting stores on the website. I'm not saying I've made it or anything like that, but I have a job I love, and I do what I love every day. So once again, thank you, Jean-Luc, for calling in. We'll let you go. Good luck for the rest of the season, and we'll hopefully talk to you and see you soon at some point.